Okay, you're listening to KX 93.5, Laguna's only FM. I'm Scott Hayes. This is Radio Caravan, and of course, I'm in the studio today with my co-host, Robert Palmer, who's texting on me.
I am. Good morning.
Who are you texting, by the way? What's going on over there?
One of our listeners.
Oh, very nice. Have them call in. See if they have an interesting question for our next guest. So here's a couple of quotes I'm going to pull on our next guest. Former Los Angeles District Attorney Ira Reiner, who you told me you worked with, right, Robert?
I was a DA for him for 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Wow.
With 3 people in jail. Not Tony, though.
All right. Anyways, he said of today's guest, he's the single largest art forger in the United States. The single largest art forger in the United States. Venice gallery owner Tom Binder said of today's guest, he was just a brilliant mind that went astray, a Frankenstein. And Larry Steinem of the Carol Lawrence Gallery once told the BBC that our next guest, one of his paintings is probably in every major museum in the world. They just don't know it yet.
That's right.
Yeah. So in the studio today we have Tony Tetro, the world's greatest living art forger. Get on the mic, Tony. Get on the mic there. Get as close to that mic as you can, my friend.
Hello.
Pull that closer to you if you want. That way you don't have to reach over.
Why didn't you tell me that before?
Well, I thought we did that, but that's okay. Tony, let me ask you a quick question. If indeed you were the greatest or are the greatest living art forger, how did you end up arrested in 1989? How did you get caught? I mean, you were doing things that nobody, you were like a masterful art forger, were you not? You were just raking in the dough. People thought you were they didn't know what sort of business you were in.
Oh, they thought I was a drug dealer. That's what they thought.
But you weren't a drug dealer. You were forging famous artworks, right?
Correct.
Now, is it true that you had a sense of relief when you were finally arrested because you could boldly admit you were not a drug dealer?
That's
As you said,
exactly true.
every neighbor and cop thought, but were a beautiful art forger.
Yes, they had a documentary on after, and they had these cops with their face blacked out, and all these people were going into Tetro's house, and that we thought that it was unusual and that he must be a drug dealer. And every time a drug dealer got arrested, they called me. I go, "Hi, how you doing?"
Was that you?
Yeah, they were trying to get, wear a wire and come and talk to me.
Oh, wow.
And they all loved me because I got the heat and they didn't.
Yeah, but Tony, ultimately you were arrested for forging artworks, right? And then how did you get caught? Can you just sort of describe briefly?
Do you know?
Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that you did a Yamaguchi or Yamagata.
Yamagata.
Yamagata?
For an art dealer.
He was a local artist.
Southern California.
Okay, and what happened there?
No, he is a Southern California artist. He's Japanese, and he was a rising star.
Okay.
Now he's a superstar.
All right.
Because of me, I might add.
Sure.
Well, it was. He got worldwide press over this.
Okay, so what happened?
And this art dealer asked me to do these little watercolors. I'm talking 1 inch by 2 inch, 3 inches by 4 inches, and he had some that were 4 inches by 7 inches, things like that. I never saw one in person, but I had a book. And Yamagata was a very, very detailed artist. He could he did 20 Japanese characters on a grain of rice, and you had to view it through a magnifying glass.
Wow.
He's very, very detailed. And he had people looking out of windows in villages, and it was a very panoramic view in all of his paintings. And he had balloons with people in the balloons.
So what did you do?
Well, he asked me to copy these. They were watercolors.
Who asked you to copy them?
An art dealer. I don't want to
Okay.
mention his name.
That's
I don't
fine.
wanna
No
bring up
names here. No names today.
Old wounds.
Yeah.
And so I did. That was my job. So I did. I did 40, 50. I forget how many I did it for
Yeah.
him. And he wrote me a rubber check. I never got paid for him, really.
Right.
And he sold it. Yamagata was under contract with Martin Lawrence Galleries. And there was a gallery right down the street called Carol Lawrence Galleries. And he sells them to them. Now, this is the headquarters for Martin Lawrence, who's nationwide. It's a huge gallery chain.
Yeah.
He sells them to Carol Lawrence Galleries, and Carol Lawrence puts them right in the window.
Wow.
When they're exclusively supposed to be a block away at Martin Lawrence Galleries and their other stores.
And Yamagata walked in one day, saw these paintings in the Carol Lawrence Gallery, and realized when he went back
That's not mine.
that they aren't his, right?
He's walking with his family down
Yeah.
Beverly. This was on Beverly Drive in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And He says, look, there's your paintings, as one of his family members said.
Right.
He goes, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's how it all started.
And so the DA ran sort of a sting on you. They eventually sort of, I don't know, got some information over wiretaps and stuff, and ultimately decided that you were an art forger. Is that correct? Is that sort of how that worked?
Well, they got this art dealer and put a wire on him,
Uh-huh.
and 25 of them came to my home.
25 of them being DA officers.
District attorney's officers,
Yeah.
local cops, I guess, too. Everybody wanted a piece of it.
You did Chacals, you did Caravaggios, you did almost every major artist that we could think of, yes?
Anything I was asked to do except Jackson Pollock.
Except Jackson Pollock, too difficult, yeah?
Too messy.
how
Too
could you do
messy.
it?
Too sloppy.
How could you do Jackson Pollock?
But you would forge the paintings, you would forge the signatures, you would forge the provenance paperwork, you would...
No, in some cases,
Yeah.
not always.
The
Provenance.
The provenance?
is just as difficult as a painting. You see, in the past, nobody had to worry about the provenance. The provenance now is more important than the painting itself.
Yeah.
And as time goes by, it's going to be even more important.
What made you so good? What made you so successful at your job? Because you were living in a very nice community in a nice home. You were driving 1, 2, maybe 3 cars. You were eating at some of the best restaurants in Los Angeles. What made you so good as an art forger for all those years?
Well, Scott, when you met me, was I living that way?
No, you were living in a motel next door to a restaurant bar in Newport Beach.
With
Yeah,
a minivan with bird poop all over it?
exactly. Yeah. But what made you good before then? Before you got arrested, what made you so talented?
Well, I think I'm a clinical perfectionist when it came to that. I love the aging part of it, the cracking part of it,
Right.
the oohs and ahs that I got from the people who knew about art.
Because that was 25 years ago. You eventually spent about 9 months in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Station at San Dimas, kind of a work furlough
Uno
program.
anos.
Huh?
A year, no, not 9 months. 3 months is a long time in the can. So it was a year.
All right. And you were teaching high school students, taggers, gangbangers, how to paint. That was basically your penance for the...
And paintings about traffic safety that I did in my
My
studio.
favorite, you did a Mona Lisa with a seatbelt on, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, because of people who couldn't speak English, they had to be visual. That was my Ferrari.
I love it.
So back on the art forgery, do you have any remorse for the people who you sort of snookered? Maybe you didn't snooker them, but the people who purchased what they thought were legitimate paintings and may find out one day that really they're copies done by Tony Tetro.
Yes, I do, but it didn't happen until recently.
What didn't happen until recently?
Any remorse.
Well, why recently? What transpired that made you more remorseful
Because
today?
During my trial, they had 5 years, 4.5 years the trial lasted.
Uh-huh.
And for 4.5 years, they put ads in the Los Angeles Times. I'm talking about the district attorney's office. Put ads in the Los Angeles Times, big block ads, trying to find one victim in my trial. They didn't have any victims. They didn't have anybody crying, look what I got. I paid a lot of money for this. They didn't have that. And so in my mind, so I didn't have any. So I had a hung jury because of it. So in my mind, I said, well, no victims, no harm. Well, everybody here, not see this program, American Greed.
Yeah, okay.
It's relatively, how old is that? 4 years old?
I don't know.
Well, I think that's an important program
Okay,
because it's the first time they've ever showed crime from a victim's point of view.
okay. And it was that program that caused you to feel remorseful? Oh, that's interesting.
Well, really, because you see the repercussions of what you've done.
Right.
And so there's been no repercussions yet.
Right.
Maybe sometime in the future when they can find a way of finding my stuff. You see, I use the same paper that they use. I use the same pigments that they use.
The artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in that documentary, BBC, that you saw last night,
Right.
did you see how they found a pigment that wasn't quite right?
Right.
It was too new for that Chagall.
Right.
Okay. Well, all my pigments were exactly the same as Chagall used.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm David Wilhelm, and this is Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Jimmy's has been called a casual comeback for me. I think that's because most of the restaurants that I developed in the past were white tablecloth, upper-end restaurants. Jimmy's was designed as a place for friends and families to gather and enjoy regional American comfort food in a casual setting. Jimmy's Famous American Tavern, simple and traditional.
What does a reformed art forger do for a living today? And I want to start with the idea that you're emulating still famous paintings for wealthy billionaire-type clients. Is that true?
Not emulating. Now I'm copying. Now before I emulated.
What's the difference between emulating and copying?
Emulating is I emulated the style of an artist and signed their name. Now I copy a painting as close to exact as I can
Okay.
and sign their name. And sign my name all over the back with stamps and everything. Because I have to. I'm ordered by the courts. In fact, I'm the only person in the United States that's ordered by the courts and has to.
That has to sign his name to the back of everything you paint, right?
Yeah, I have to stamp that. I'm trying to find the right word that I usually use when I'm not on radio.
Yeah.
Stamp the hell out of it.
Yeah, but that's because they don't want anybody taking your paintings and passing them off as real.
Right, they can't
By
get
your
back
signature
into
on the back, nobody can do that.
So it can't get back into commerce as
Yeah.
real.
Why would a wealthy billionaire client ask you to come in and spend, I'm assuming, a lot of money to have you copy famous artworks?
Good question.
Thank you.
Depends on the clout you have, how much money you have, and if you can get away with it.
Okay.
Now think about this. Somebody living in tract homes has got a Rembrandt over their sofa. Who's going to buy it?
Right,
Okay. You get a billionaire,
right.
and you've got a Rembrandt, Caravaggio, a Titian over their sofa, and it's cracked, and it's aged, and it's in a beautiful gold leaf frame. They're going to buy it. And everybody who's in his home is not going to know it's not in his home. Because a lot of these paintings, he chooses them. They're
He
not,
being one of your clients?
Yes.
Okay,
He sees that they're not in a museum, they're in a private collection.
right.
So whose private collection? Because most often they say private collection. Sometimes they say the name of the person who owns it. But most often they say private collection.
Right.
Excuse me. You want me to burp in this?
No, that's okay.
And so, yes, they do get away with it.
It's just driven by ego.
Oh, yeah,
Bring
tremendous
the
ego.
friends in the house, and you might not even mention that it's hanging on the wall. You just watch their eyes bulge out as they see a Rembrandt hanging over your fireplace.
But are there some clients who do it because they own the legitimate
Yes.
painting, and then they use this to hang on the wall, but put
Yeah.
the legitimate one away in a vault?
I haven't done that in a long time, but that's
Okay.
what I used to do.
Yeah.
They would hang mine up and put the one in the vault and save a lot of money
Yeah.
on insurance. It's 5% annually to insure an old painting. Let's say you have a painting that's $100 million, which the ones that I paint would be worth at least $100 million.
Even though you're painting them? You're telling me? Oh, if they were legitimate, they would be worth that.
So that's
Gotcha.
a $5 million a year on one painting.
Right.
So, yes.
How much does a retired, reformed art forger earn, ballpark, to copy one of these now famous paintings for somebody's wall?
It depends on the degree of difficulty, the
understand.
size, and how many. So I'm not going to tell you.
Would 10,000, 100,000,
I would start at
250,000?
10,000.
You would start at 10,000, yeah, and go up as high as 100,000,
Yeah,
yeah,
or more.
or more. Hey, I believe we have a caller online, if I'm not mistaken. Here, caller, are you there?
I am. Good morning, Scott.
This must be my brother-in-law Mark from the East Coast. How are you, sir?
Doing just great. Thank you. Calling from Edisto Island, South Carolina.
That sounds beautiful. And you're on the beach just hanging out for the weekend, right?
Well, we had to get away from the snow, Scott.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you and I chatted about this particular show, and I asked you to come up with something sort of, unusual to ask Tony, and you said to me last night that you had something good. What's your question for Tony Tetro, the world's greatest living art forger by some people's standards?
And
Well,
not
first of all,
practice.
I didn't
it's
say
not,
practicing. I said living.
He always said living. I heard that.
All right.
But I hope, Scott, you'll indulge me with more than just one question.
Well, let's go. Let's start with one.
Tony, I've got a question for you about your mother.
Okay.
Is it true that she once watched Amelia Earhart land her plane in their family's pasture?
How the hell?
Wow.
That's a fact. Yes. And she was just before she died. She was telling my daughter about it and us about it, and we thought she was going a little wacky, and it was a fact. We found out.
Did your mom know you were an art forger?
Yes, she went to my trial.
She went to your trial. And what was her sort of experience, or did she ever talk to you about sort of, her son going to prison because he was an art forger? Did she ever talk about that with you?
Actually, she was getting old, and it was.
Uh-huh.
She wasn't pleased with it.
Yeah.
but she was trying to support me. That's all.
That's good. Yeah, interesting. Mark, great question. You have a second one?
I do.
Okay.
That was a great
I actually got a
question,
third quick follow-up, but I've just got to ask this.
Please.
Tony, are any of the paintings that you've done more difficult than others from the standpoint of subtleties or details? I mean, I'm sure they are, but can you kind of give an example?
Okay. If you look at a Chagall and you look at a Bouguereau, well, let's say not many people know who Bouguereau is. Let's say Rembrandt. There's little subtleties in both that a Chagall looks much more simple than it would be a Rembrandt. Like, look at the face on a Chagall. He does a little scribble, but the scribble for the face is a Chagall face. And you got to manage that little scribble to make it a Chagall face. It's got to be Chagall-ish. And the colors got to be perfect. Whereas in a Rembrandt, in an oil, you've got to get the feeling of Rembrandt. He would put the paint on fast, and he would capture the person and soul, and he'd have so much texture. You'd have to get that just right. Where can I see? I did a drawing, a Rembrandt drawing, and I have it. I have my phone. I can show it.
We won't be able to see it on camera. But in fact, I do have one of your paintings. Let's go to segue just a little bit here. What is this that we're looking at? I'm going to lift it up for the cameras, and this thing's framed.
It's heavy.
And it's heavy. What are we looking at here?
Leonardo only painted on wood. That's a discussion people don't know about.
Okay.
Because in the Louvre, they've got one on canvas.
Right.
They literally cut the wood away and put it back on canvas. Restorers did 100 years ago. They will not do that anymore.
You did this painting.
Yes.
You did this how long ago?
I finished it just about when the BBC was over there.
Okay, we'll talk
6
about
months ago.
For our
6 months
listeners, this is mother and child, but it has an odd twist because between them is a vicious small panther about ready to eat the child.
Right, but that's my only twist on a Leonardo.
That was a tip. It might be a fake, by the way.
Well,
What's it?
not only. But wait a minute, it's missing.
Everyone else knows that he used snow leopards to eat his children.
Hi, I'm David Wilhelm, and this is Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Jimmy's has been called a casual comeback for me. I think that's because most of the restaurants that I developed in the past were white tablecloth, upper-end restaurants. Jimmy's was designed as a place for friends and families to gather and enjoy regional American comfort food in a casual setting. Jimmy's Famous American Tavern. Simple and traditional.
Hey, also as a reformed art forger, you're now becoming sort of the art forgery expert for certain TV shows. And I think it was last year on CNBC. Do I have those call letters correct, Tony?
Yes, you do.
There was the TV show Treasure Detective, in which you appeared as an art forgery expert. And then just this past week, the BBC One TV show Fake or Fortune, where they brought to you a Chagall, and you're sort of an expert in Chagall, Marc Chagall. They brought you a Chagall to determine your opinion on whether it was real or fake, because they weren't sure, correct?
Correct.
In your opinion, the Chagall they showed on this BBC TV show, was it real or was it fake, and why?
When they brought it in, I said instantly it was fake, and they go, cut. They wanted more drama. It was fake. It was good. It was
How did you know it was fake?
the face and the lines around the body of it was a nude. This on radio you can't see the picture, so and the signature, the whole composition just wasn't Chagall to me. But it was 1910. I never went back that far.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
But
I thought I did it.
You sort of know Chagall pretty well. Have you ever been in a museum where you saw one of your paintings hanging there?
Yes. And now, Scott, you're going to ask me the next following question: where, when, who is? And I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you.
Why wouldn't you tell somebody? Wouldn't that be the greatest story of an art forger's world? That, by the way, here in ABC Museum is hanging one of my paintings that they think is real. Wouldn't that really sort of solidify you in the art forgery world as one of the greatest?
I'm as solidified as I want to be. I don't care if they want to call me the greatest or the worst. There's no way I'm going to open up a can of worms and cause my life misery and tell anybody anything. anymore about that. I don't want to know anything anymore.
Last year, there was something called the Art Series Hotel Contest in Australia titled, Can You Spot the Fake Warhol? And this group apparently flew you over to Australia to participate in this program where you forged, for the public view, Andy Warhols.
Mm-hmm.
What was that all about?
Well, they asked me, and they gave me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they flew me over on a A380, and I had my own bedroom, which was nice because it's a 16-hour flight.
Okay.
And I had
I don't want to hear about the bedroom necessarily. Tell me about the contest.
I do.
We got 4 minutes, so I want to get through some stuff.
There's also, in conjunction with a forum on art forgery, and I was the only artist there.
Okay.
So it was very clever, and they put me together with this, and they had all these art experts from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I was persona non gratis to them, and they had a forum about art forgery and the damage that it does. And so they were asking questions, and what it ended up doing is making me a lot more money because I got commissions off of it.
Oh, you did? So people kind of like the idea that you're copying these famous paintings, contact you to have paintings for themselves, yes?
Well, not only that, there was about 17 art experts there from all over. And I got 35 interviews after. They got none.
Wow.
Wow.
So the public obviously likes the bad guy.
What did you think of Warhol as an artist?
Not much, but I liked him.
Yeah. You kind of
did.
refer to some artists as ham and eggers, yes? Was Warhol and ham and egger?
He was far from a ham and egger.
Oh, okay.
It was more of a tomato super.
Lastly, we got 3 minutes left here, Robert, and I want you to see this. Tony has decided to take this genius, this Frankensteinian, I don't even know if that's a legitimate word or not, this style of his to create high-end luxury watches. And you brought this, Tony. I want you to kind of take this with you here. And in a minute or less, tell us what's going on with these watches, because we don't have a lot of time. And I know we got another caller on the phone named Larry. Larry, while he's pulling up the watches, Larry, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. You've been listening to the show, yes?
Absolutely.
You got a question for Tony Tetro?
Yeah, Tony, do you have any original pieces out that you've done that are out in a gallery, or is it all just a copy or a forgery?
Great question.
It is. All copies and forgeries. No, yes, copies, they would be lithographs and the etchings, or forgeries, but I didn't put them there.
Why didn't you never create your own original artwork?
Because I, at the time, enjoyed what I was doing.
You enjoyed the art forgery aspect of the art world, not the actual creating original side of it, yeah? Let's talk about the watches. We got 1 minute, Tony. I'm sorry, we cut you off show.
No, I don't care.
We're looking at a case of 10 beautiful watches here. Those are stunning.
But yeah, I'm good. I'm making watches now, and I'm in the process of making the world's thinnest mechanical watch and the thinnest automatic watches in the world.
Yeah.
Thin watches are coming back after a hiatus of like 17 years. For the last 17 years, a watch is like a hamburger on your wrist, but to me, it's going to be thin again.
What's the name of that line, Tony?
Antonio Tetro.
And you got paintings, really sort of detailed paintings on the back of some of these of famous artists?
Yes.
You're using mechanical devices that are really high-end that you're purchasing overseas. You've been working on this for 2 years now.
About 5.
About 5 years. How soon until you're ready to launch this particular high-end luxury watch business?
I ran out of Michelangelo's paintings, and this is the only one that doesn't have it. I'll give you one here.
How long until you think they'll be available? Any ideas?
3 months.
Really? You think 3 months they'll be available? What will these watches sell for? We got about 30 seconds or less.
20,000 and up.
And why 20,000? Because they come from you?
Because they're high end.
Mm-hmm.
No, not because they're coming from me. Because they're going to be precious metals.
Okay.
And they're difficult to make.
Yeah.
And they're very expensive movements.
And we're going to get some B-roll on that. And I'm getting the wrap-up sign here. So, Tony, always interesting to chat with you, man. And, you know, the funny thing, real quickly here, Tony, we were sitting one day on a patio having drinks and stuff, and I said, Tony, can you answer one question for me honestly? And he says, I can do that. And I said, I can do that. I can do that. And I looked him right in the eye, and I said, Tony, do you ever BS me? when you're telling your stories. And he throws up his arms and he gives me this big hearty laugh and he says, "Of course I do."
That's what I do.
That's part of his charm. Hey, you've been listening to KX93.5, Laguna's only FM. This is Radio Caravan. I'm Scott Hayes.
Robert Palmer, and we'll see you next week.
Beautiful. Take us out of here, Brian.